Hey everyone, it's Corey, and welcome back to another episode of Crafters Roundtable, the podcast where I get to sit down with individuals and learn more about their experiences and their insights in the wonderful world of quilting, sewing, embroidery, and crafting. Today's guest, I am super excited to chat with, and I know you are going to love her. We met back at the Houston Quilt Market, I want to say in 2024, and then we got reconnected back at H&H this past year, and I am so excited that we were able to get her on the books for this podcast because her patterns are incredible and she comes to them a different way. She really attacks patterns a different way as an incredible designer, and I can't wait to chat with her. But before we get into today's podcast, please make sure you are subscribed wherever you are watching so you can stay up to date. Or if you're listening to this podcast on platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, make sure you are following the Crafters Roundtable page on those podcast platforms to stay up to date with every episode as it drops. So, without further ado, grab a chair and join me and Tracy at the table. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi, Corey. Oh, good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm super excited that you're here with me virtually on opposite sides of the world.
Yes, and you're here with me on my little boat.
I know. I was super duper excited to chat with you today. We've got a lot of fun things to dive into. But the first thing that I want to do for those that might not know who you are or your business is, can you give us a small introduction to who you are and your business? And then we're going to go into all of our fun questions that we've got today.
Okay, thank you. My name's Tracy Perks. I'm a quilt pattern designer in the UK. I live on a narrowboat. And I've also got the little boat, which is my floating studio, which we'll talk about soon, hopefully. We live on the Grand Union Canal in the heart of England, basically. And I live with my husband and my two dogs. So we've got two boats and we tow the little boat behind us.
Oh my gosh. So I want to talk about the boat. Okay. So
Okay.
you're known for your signature little boat studio and you're living on the canal. Talk to us about what that's like living on the water and having a floating quilting studio, a floating design studio, as well as a floating house. What are some of those things? How did this all come about? I'm really interested.
So we moved on about 15 or 16 years ago. And at that point, I was it worked in HR. I was a HR manager. And then about 10 years ago, my husband was like, you need to get a hobby. You're just working constantly. You need to get a hobby. Go and buy a sewing machine. And I was like, I can't sew. I don't think I want to sew.
Right.
And it was Boxing Day, and I went to our local, like your Hobby Lobby. So we got a hobby craft. I bought a sewing machine and some fat quarters and some scissors and thought I could make a quilt. Well, we know that's, I could. It wasn't great. And I did make this quilt. But yeah, so over the 10 years, obviously I've got obsessed with quilting and buying fabric and all the other bits that go with it. And I think it was about 3 years ago, we got the opportunity to get the little boat because I'd overgrown my tiny space
Yeah.
in our main boat. We had what's called a dinette. So, if you've got an RV or a caravan and you've got the dining table that makes down into a bed,
Right.
we had that, and we removed that and made it into a 6 foot by 4 foot sewing area for me, which with a pull out bench. And then I outgrew it, and our boat was starting to go on the wonk because all the weight with my sewing machine, the fabric, seriously, Corey. And my husband was trying to readjust everything and get the ballast right in the boat. And he's like, this is ridiculous. Everything is too heavy that you've got, because fabric can weigh quite a lot, can't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So about 3 years ago, my husband came home and he said, I've seen this little boat. It's absolutely great. It's perfect for what you want. And I'm like, no, we don't need any more vehicles. We don't need another boat. It's, it can be difficult and trying at times living on the canal as it is, never mind having two boats. And he's like, just come and look at this boat. I was like, no, I'm not going to. It's his friend that had got it. And then his friend bought the boat up and moored it near us. And he was like, I said, I know, it's going to be like going to look at a puppy, isn't it? Or a kitten. You're going to come home with it, aren't you?
Yep. Of course you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what happened. He was like, just come and look at this space. And this boat had sunk. It had been sunk previously, so it was clean inside, but everything needed ripping out. But as soon as I got in here, I was like, oh, this could be such a lovely space for me to have as my own, and we get our dinette back. And so yeah, we bought it, obviously, and 3 years. My husband gutted it. He took everything out, all the walls out, all the electrics. I've got a little wood burning stove in the corner for the winter, and we've purpose built it for me to sew in. The only thing I can't do is baste a quilt in here, so I have to go next door back to the boat that we live in to baste quilts.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I'm sure people listening now that might not experience the same thing on a boat, but in a very tiny space, how cramped it can get quickly. And you mentioned fabric weighing a lot. Yeah, no, I know a little bit of things about moving bolts around here, how heavy the fabric can get. So I can only imagine how that would sway on the boat. But you mentioned starting in the tinier space, that dinette, and you're really a self-taught quilter, from things that we've chatted about and things that I've learned from you online. And when you were in that tiny space, before moving into your boat studio, what was really kind of that breakthrough moment that kind of said, this is my path, this is what I really, really want to do?
It was, as I'd started quilting, I'd realized that I wasn't keen on following other people's patterns. I was struggling with too many words and the visuals. And so I'd started with my graph book, and I was designing lots of things in my graph book and then adding stuff up. And I've got like 2 or 3 books full of designs. And it was about, I can't remember which year it was. I think it was 2020. I designed the bumblebee for my friend, actually the person that we bought the little boat from. She wanted a bumblebee designing for her new grandchild, and she said, could you do a cushion? And for some crazy reason, I said, yeah, absolutely. And I did it in 1-inch finished squares. I know. And it was the first time I've done anything that tiny. And I didn't use a grid. I didn't know anything about, the Bosal watercolor grid. And so I'd got that design, and I think that I'd done that in 2020 or perhaps a little bit before. But then in 2020, when COVID hit and we had the lockdown, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to upsize that bumblebee. And I made a big bumblebee. I think it measures like 55 by 55. And I posted pictures on Instagram, and people were like, "Oh, that's wicked. Where did you get that pattern from?" I'm like, "Oh, I just sketched it out myself."
Yeah, made it. Yeah.
Squares, half square triangles. And then I think somebody bought it, and then I made another one. And then it was towards the end of 2020, and I've got a health condition, so I was shielding as well. So I became more obsessed with creating quilts and using the stash that I had, because I wasn't going out. And it was a therapy for me after working, because I was working from home. And at that point was when I thought, do you know what? I think people like my stuff that I'm making. I should make them into patterns. And my niece, she was at home as well. She's a new graphic designer, and she said, Auntie Tracy, we can make these. I can brand for you. So all of a sudden, I'm not just designing patterns for myself. I'm going, oh, I need a website, I need
Yep.
branding, I need a logo, and yeah. So that I think it was during the COVID time that I was like, yeah, come on, let's do this.
Let's do it. And that's how the your company, Rope and Anchor Trading Company,
Yeah,
was born. Yeah.
yeah,
Which is nice. And so we started talking about your patterns, and when we met at the quilt market, the Houston Quilt Market, you had given me one of your patterns. I've got one right here,
yeah.
and this is the spring quilt pattern. And as I flip through and look at these, your patterns, like you said, they're very visual, and I really enjoy that, as to the fact that they're tailored. When you look at them originally, they're tailored a little bit more towards beginners, but I also go to they're tailored to visual learners, which a lot of us in the quilting space are visual learners. That's why we love quilting and making quilts. We love the visual look of them, and the learning aspect of it. So how do you balance the design of simplicity with a striking design, and kind of what inspires you to focus on this niche that you've built, that you've created, with your patterns?
Well, like I said, I was struggling to find beginner patterns that were more visual, and
Yeah.
I wanted to get that balance between having, like the half square triangle diagram,
Hmm.
having that easy to read and understand without lots of words, but also like the tick off, the row by row. At that point, everything was sort of row by row. In fact, most of my patterns are in a row by row, or two blocks in a row. And I wanted to have those nice tick off boxes so we could remember where we got to and tick off what you've cut out, because does all the cutting in one sitting? A lot of people don't, do they? And then
Yeah.
you've forgotten what you've cut or what sizes you've cut. So
Right.
I was trying to get that balance of, there for visual learners, but also those seasoned quilters, seasoned stitchers, might want to pick something up that's really quick and easy to make. So they know how to do the half square triangles, they know how to do all the cutting, and they might. And I've gone with bigger squares the last couple of years, so the more seasoned stitchers can go, oh, this is a quick and easy make that I can do. And the beginner quilters can go, I can create something that's really visual and stunning from my patterns, in all sorts of different colorways. So that was sort of my thinking. That's how I think when I'm designing my patterns.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, your patterns, oh, they've got, kind of this book format where you've got, the information where you can put in like the what fabrics you've used, what notions you've used, what thread, what wadding or batting, that you've used, backing, anything. Like, it's very. This is kind of becomes like the journey of the quilt. If you say,
Yeah.
it's not just a pattern; it's all the things about it. What quilt design did you end up going with? Even if you sent it off to the quilter, what quilt design did they use? What thread color did they go with? And this is kind of that story that goes along with the quilt that you can either save with it or send it off with the info pieces with the quilt, and kind of create your own little document of it.
Yeah.
Now, your catalog, it really features a wide variety of designs. You've got from table runners to quilts to cushion covers. How do you design, or kind of decide, what shapes or themes you're going to attack next?
Well, I started off with the butterfly, and then I think it was the moth and stag, and then I did a bug and the sea turtle, and it was all going in the direction of like little animals and creatures. And then there was the giraffe, but we'll come on to the giraffe in a bit. Um, but I then realised that I was getting a bit too niche, that's when I wanted to expand and go, okay. And also, I had a feedback that there's a lot of squares in some of these, and half square triangle units in some of the designs. So again, I wanted to do something a little bit different with the bigger squares and the blocks as well. Recently, having two coordinating blocks that you can pick up and go, I can turn these different ways and create something that's really, really lovely, but it's very simple to do.
So, is kind of, where are you and I think I might have asked this, but I think we kind of went off on another tangent and talking about other things. Where are you getting your overall design inspiration from? Because I'm always interested, like listening to designers on, you're out just walking around in nature and you see something that you want to
Yeah.
try out, or you're scrolling on Pinterest and you see something you want to try out. Like where does Tracy get her design inspiration from?
Funnily enough, a lot of it is on the canals,
Okay.
especially the creatures. And I remember sitting out one night. We'd gone off on the boat before we got the little boat, and there was these little bugs, really colourful little bugs, all over the place. And I was like, "Oh, do you know what? I think I could do a bug quilt," which I
Yes.
did. And actually, I've got a ladybug quilt that I've had cut up for about 3 years, and I've not the patterns. You've just reminded me the pattern is drafted out, and
Oh, we
it's
need
there ready
that.
to go. And I need to get that finished. So those they came from, just being outside.
Yeah.
The square promenade, which is it's all greens. That was one for I think late last year. That was all the different grasses, and that we see along the towpath. So a lot of it is from being here on the boat.
Being able to have the sewist, the quilter kind of step into the world with you, kind of the way you're seeing things, where you're seeing things
Yeah,
on the canal, what you're seeing things on the little boat. I think is a really interesting just topic when I speak with different pattern designers where they're gaining their inspiration from,
yeah,
because a lot of it is from what's around them or from things they've experienced in life, or you're able to connect with individuals through your art and have them kind of replicate what you're seeing. And for them, might
yeah,
be on the other side of the world. You're in the UK, majority of us
yeah.
are here in the US that are listening. And it's just a really great way to connect together, which I think is what sewing and quilting is all about. When we're looking at your patterns, I've got a paper one here in hand, but do you sell them PDF on your website?
Yes, I do sell PDF. They don't have the fabric swatch page and the
Okay.
colour your own page in. I wanted to have those in the booklet because I wanted people to be able to pick the booklets
Yeah.
up and go, this is really nice. Because when you're quilting a quilt, you're not going to do it overnight. I
Right.
wanted the patterns to be able to be something that's like a little journey for them to go on with, writing in the book, colouring their own in, something a different experience to just print it off and then you know that you sew it and that's it. I want them to
Right.
keep it and be able to go back and reference stuff like you said earlier on.
Yeah, kind of building that story with the quilt. And one thing I did, you mentioned this in a second ago, was that color your own page, which is in the back of the book here. And I think that's really cool because you're giving someone a visual spot to design their own quilt. Because I see a lot of quilters and sewers, they stop with what's on the front page of the pattern. This is
Yeah,
all I'm gonna do right there, because it's
yeah,
already colored. The designer has designed where the colors are going to go, and I don't want to. I'm not veering from that. That's where I want to be. But having a kind of a color your own spot to say, oh, this looks good or that looks good, or oh, maybe that doesn't look good, to kind of build your own color scheme and make your own version of this quilt to have your own spin on your pattern. I think it's fun and really cool, and again, something that no one is doing. So I applaud you
yeah.
on that because that makes it fun.
Thank you. It's also a bit of mindfulness as well to go, let's just get the crayons out, or my felt tips, or those fancy pens that I've had for ages and I haven't used, and
Right.
just sit with a cup of tea and just do a little bit of colouring.
It just a lot little, yeah, just mind numbing and just saying, "Okay, this looks good there, that looks good
Yeah,
there." And then you kinda step away from it and be like, "Oh, that's gonna look really good, we're going with it."
yeah, yeah.
Oh, goodness. So I wanna veer into another topic. Now, you've shared, a bunch of tutorials going from cutting mats to binding tips, and a few other things. What do you think are some foundational, like, skills that you feel are the most important for beginners to know and for people to teach beginners?
I think cutting techniques,
Mm,
and when people say to me, "Oh, there's a lot of half square triangles in here, or there's a lot of squares," I'm like, "But by the time you finish that quilt, you will have mastered good cutting skills and good, that half square triangle is, the foundation, isn't it, of a lot of quilts.
Yeah.
And I think that I love to use the stripology ruler.
Oh,
Um,
same. It's
I
my favorite.
It was a game changer for me, and I hadn't found it until about, no, 3 or 4 years ago. And when I
Oh,
found
wow.
it, I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" And so I demonstrate it as much as I possibly can, and I love the mini one as well. So I've got a couple of tutorials on how to do half square triangles. If you've not got all this kit, and if you've got a normal ruler with your 45-degree line as well. So I'm trying to do stuff that is accessible to everybody.
Mhm. Yeah, that works really well.
Yeah.
You mentioned, stripology, the inventor of the designer of the stripology ruler. I have her on the podcast later today, actually. So I will definitely give you a shout out in that, in that
Yeah.
episode with her, 'cause, she's really, really cool to speak with and learn more about it. Because I love my stripology. I've got the largest one, the XL.
Yeah.
I need the other sizes, but that's just then I have to go shopping, and that's a whole thing.
Definitely go for the mini one. It's absolutely brilliant for squaring up half square triangles. It, that's my go-to.
Really? I wouldn't even thought about that. Okay, well,
Yeah.
there we go. Do you have a tutorial on that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Sold. I will go watch your tutorial and learn how to square them up with a mini stripology, and then I'll get a mini
Brilliant.
stripology.
Cool.
Um, so you've mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about your patterns, and then just now that a lot of your patterns are built around the simple squares and the half square triangles. What
Yeah.
keeps you kind of drawn to those elements, even in various designs?
I think, I've got my branding set up and I've got my layouts and stuff. So it's probably too easy for me now to keep going back and going, oh, I'll just do this. And it's another square, half square triangle.
Yeah.
I have got some new things that I'm working on to push myself as well, because otherwise I'm just going to get in this niche of squares, half square triangles. So I
Mhm.
need to develop myself. I need to push myself. And also the people that are buying my patterns, people come back and they buy more and more, which I'm so thankful of and grateful. But I also want them to develop and go, oh, now Tracy's bought one out with equilateral triangles,
Mhm.
which is one that I'm working on. And again, I'm using Gudrun's stripology ruler for that, and also her little mini triangle trimmer.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that's going to feature in one of my new patterns. But also, then we're going to have. I've got some applique that I'm working on because I wanted to try and go into other directions as well.
Oh, wow. That's it sounds like there's quite a bit in the future for you. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen because 'cause I'm gonna be following along with all of it,
Yeah,
to keep the people up to date. Now as we chat and even just right now, just this chatting back and forth and then on your online presence as well, you have a strong bond and forefront for collaboration kind of in the community of
yeah,
sewing and quilting. And you have a blog called Quilter to Quilter, which is includes some conversations with people like Rona.
yeah.
And what have these exchanges, taught you about community driven creativity, and what have you kind of learned from being more involved in the community and giving back to the sewing community? How has that kind of changed your perspective on different things?
It makes me feel less insular. I got in touch with Rona. So Rona is the riveter. She's known as a traveling quilter, and she came over to the UK. Or I was in a Facebook group, and she said I'm coming over to the UK. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to just message her and see if she wants to come to the little boat.
Yeah.
I didn't know her. I'd never contacted her before, and she came over, and she'd been traveling all around Scotland, and I was her last stop before she was heading back to London. And she spent the day with me on the little boat, and we, from then on, I felt that it was really important to try and push myself to sort of get in touch with other people,
Yeah.
collaborate with people. So Rona and I have done a couple of things together. She's bringing a whole plane full of American quilters over to Scotland later this year, and I'm going to go and be a guest demonstrator. We're going to do some workshops and stuff up in Scotland. So that's going to be great fun. But also, it's introducing the people in my Facebook community and my newsletters to
Yeah.
other quilters and other designers. And I think that goes back to my HR background, where I've always been quite good at networking. And you know, somebody will come up with a problem and then go, "Oh, do you know what? I know somebody that can help you with that."
Right.
And that's what I like to do with in my Facebook group, is to go, have you seen Stacey Lee Creative's YouTube channel? She does lots of great demonstrations and stuff. And then people have come back and gone, "Oh, I didn't realize that," or "I found something really good on there."
Yeah.
So to me, it's really good to share stuff, and you never know where it's going to lead to.
No, for sure. Yeah, I get a lot of, and I had this conversation the day before yesterday with somebody that I find, and you might be able to agree with me, in the quilting and sewing community, some things are kind of gate kept, and it's kind of like, no, I don't want to tell anybody because I feel like if I tell somebody, then I won't be able to either capitalize on it or show something about it. And as I've been collaborating with more people this year and really getting out into the quilting scene, because I've really primarily used to stay more or less here at Linda's and just stay with my camera and be good. But as I'm getting out there and I'm chatting, like, there are so many people that are out in the world for quilting and sewing. Like, it's not something that you have to only keep your idea to yourself. Like, share it with others, because then they're going to be like, well, I learned it from Corey. Then they're going to send their audience to come chat with you. And then it's just like this whole thing that starts to explode in front of your eyes. And it's incredible with this community. I mean, the sewing quilting community it's amazing. Absolutely the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I totally agree with you there. If we can share, the more we can share, we can get people in front of other people, and they'll find who they like.
So you had mentioned just a second ago, and now I need to get in on this Facebook group game. How does someone get into? Is this something we have to pay for to get into the Facebook group, your newsletter? How does that work? Because I need to get in on this.
Yeah, so it's free. I have a Facebook group called Made on the Cut. So going back to the canal, when the canals were built well over 200 years ago, it was cut into the countryside. So I think it was my sister-in-law that came up with the name. You know, you ought to call your Facebook group Made on the Cut. So I've got my little labels, Rope and Anchor Trading Co. on one side, and then Made on the Cut is on the other side of the labels that go into the quilt. So that's the name of my Facebook group. And we've also got a newsletter that I send out most weeks with quilting news, stuff that's coming up, new stuff that's coming up, and also little stories about being on the canal as well. So when we move the boat, I'll put pictures in there of when we move the boat, because we move every 2 weeks. We don't stay in one continuous place. So yeah, that's you asked me about where the newsletter is. That's on my website, ropeandanchortradingco.com.
Okay.
So
So this is totally off topic, but now I need to know, like, so you move your house every two
yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, so we're classed as continuous cruisers. You can stay in a marina,
Okay.
which you have to pay extra for. Um, but we have to move. It's an old bylaw. So
Okay.
basically, it goes back to the times when they used to move goods around the canals. They didn't want, we have to move to a different parish. So we can't just move like 2 minutes up the canal to a different bridge or a different lock. We
Okay.
have to move to a different parish. And it goes back nearly 200 years to when the men folk, because it was mainly men that were moving the boats around with goods in,
Hmm.
they didn't want them settling in the villages, and meeting the young women of the villages and building relationships up. So there is this old bylaw that we still have to go with now, and we have to move at least 20 miles in one navigational route. So we have to go 20 miles south before we can turn around and go back again. And in
Wow.
fact, this morning there's a guy. It's normally a guy. He comes around on his bike every other week, and he cycles down the towpath. And this sounds really archaic, and it is absolutely true. He cycles down the towpath, and he's got his little like iPad or whatever, and he takes our boat number, a bit like your registration number. He
Yeah.
takes our boat number and he plots where we are so they know that we've moved enough. So yeah,
Oh my gosh. Okay, what a
bonkers.
job. Going back up and down the canal telling people where people are now. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
no, it's a true job.
Wow, and then just moving everything. So, like, that process of and this has nothing to do with quilting, but, like, that process of moving, you're just floating down the I mean, powering up the engines, of course, and going down the canal,
Yeah,
and then so there's multiple different marinas or spots down this canal that you just kinda bounce back and
yeah.
forth between?
Yeah, we've got our favourite moorings. You know, there's people moored up all over the place. We've got our
Yeah.
favourite. This is our furthest point south where we are. So we have nicknames for places where we moor. So we call this the rookery because there's crows that turn up. You know, just as the sun's setting, and they're really noisy. Um, yeah, so there's all sorts of places, but you need to figure out where you're going to park your car as well. But we tow the little boat behind us. The little boat is um, solar powered.
Okay.
So I don't put the engine on for the lights or my sewing machine. It's all solar powered here. I've got some solar panels up on the roof.
Oh, wow.
Um, but it is a pain when I want to press stuff. So I don't press things very often because I have to use the engine on the boat next door um, to be able to put the plug in, and then I have to rev the engine up and get an extension lead to come into this boat. It's a complete faff. So I press as little as I possibly can.
It's those little things, that you
Yeah,
do to continue your craft and your business and your job, like revving
yeah,
the boat's engines to use your iron,
yeah, yeah,
which is that's quite funny.
yeah,
So earlier we talked about, you had mentioned your giraffe pattern,
yeah,
and when we email back and forth, that's always in your, signature. The picture is that giraffe pattern.
yeah.
Talk to me about the giraffe pattern. Why does that one stand out a little bit more? Kinda how did it come to fruition? I wanna know a little bit more about that.
Well, it's one of my best sellers, and I nearly didn't publish it or release it. I couldn't get the colours right. I couldn't find the right fabric, and at this point, I was doing everything in my graph book.
Mhm.
Didn't have access to a photocopier to go, right, let's do the outline, photocopy it, and then um, try different colorways. Um, and I nearly gave up on it because I couldn't find the right colors for its nose and, for its like texture.
Mhm.
So it nearly didn't come to fruition. And then once I had found the right fabrics, I just had like a completely different mind change to it. Going, it doesn't have to be in browns and beiges. Um, and I've got a blog about. I made a little one that's in bright pink, so I scaled it all down, used the grid to place everything on, so it's 1 inch finished squares, and I did it all in pinks and purples, and it's so cute. Um, yeah,
Oh, that's adorable, pinks and purples. I have to see
yeah,
that. That sounds cute.
yeah, it's lovely. But it was just I had a complete block on it,
Yeah,
so I'm glad that I persevered and was
yeah.
like, "Come on, do this."
I can get through it, I can make it happen.
Yeah, yeah,
So you've alluded to a few things throughout the episode today about kind of what's next for Rope and Anchor. You've got some, that workshop you're going to be at with Rona from and when you go to Scotland with the quilters to do that. Are there any like new YouTube series on the way? I know you alluded to a few different patterns that are coming out with different triangles. Kind of I'm very nosy, as you can tell.
right, right.
Talk to us about some of the maybe some of the newer things on the horizon that are coming for Rope and Anchor that people can be looking out for.
Well, there's quite a lot actually. So the first is kits for smaller projects. So we've got the marvelous mini table runners that are out this year, and they come out every other month. And I designed those because not everybody can afford to get a quilt kit and
Mhm.
make a huge quilt, but also people want to be able to make smaller projects that I'm going to take them so long. They want to be able to quilt them themselves. Shops want to kit up smaller kits as well,
Mhm.
and people can use their stash. And so with these smaller table runners, that was the idea behind those. I've got some applique designs. I've got one here actually. If I could show you, shall I show you?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to see it.
So this is a table runner, table topper,
Oh, look at that.
and that's with bows or craft decks in between
Oh,
the
okay.
round. So that's and actually I've got a workshop, sorry, a 1-day retreat on this as well coming up soon. And there's a lot of different techniques
Mhm.
to teach people. So using the craft decks, the applique, using different stitches, and also you can't see it on here, but I've used different weights of Aurifil thread. Because Karen, you know Karen from Redbird, Karen Miller,
Yes, yep.
love Karen. She introduced me to different thread weights when I went on a Zoom workshop with her. So there's a lot of different techniques in that. So we've got that, and there's going to be some more of those coming soon. I've also got the Witch's Stash, which is going to be a mystery box for
Ooh.
people to be able to get, and there'll be more of those as the the year goes on. And next year I've got a Christmas surprise as well.
Wow.
um I just don't have enough hours in the day
Yeah.
because it's just me.
Yeah.
So
No, I get it. I understand.
yeah, um
I totally get it.
yeah, so lots to do. There's lots that's coming. And like I said earlier, I want people to be able to, I'm going to be writing some stuff about applique and getting started with applique and the common mistakes and stuff. People that haven't done it before and go, oh, I'm a bit concerned about that, or I'm a bit scared to do that. I don't want people to be scared to do anything. I want
Right.
people to just go, come on, yeah, do you know what? I'll have a go at this. It's not, nothing's as difficult as you think.
Yeah, I'll have to follow along with that. To be blatantly honest, I don't think in the umpteen years I've been quilting and sewing, I'm looking over in my studio to see. I don't think I've ever done a true applique because I've been afraid to do it. And that's
Really?
not something that I would ever admit online. So you're the first person to get me to admit something that I'm afraid to do. And it's
Oh,
applique. So I might have to follow along with one of your things. I've done like reverse applique where I lay the fabric on the quilt and use my so I'm and I cut around in a blanket stitch, but then
yeah.
you can see it underneath. But I've never done a true applique. So I'd be I'm gonna be interested to follow along with that as it releases because you'll probably be getting me to do new skills.
Yeah, excellent. Well, this is one I'm just playing about with at the minute,
Ooh, look
which is
at
a beetroot.
that.
Um, and I've sewn little beads on it. I don't think you can pick it up on there, but I've used even the 80 weight
Mhm.
Aurifil thread in the sewing machine. So on my 1-day retreat, I want people to play with some of my threads before they think, oh, I'll go and buy those. If they don't get on with them, they can have a play with some of mine. So it's about things being accessible to people. That's really important to me, that people can
Yeah,
have a go.
totally. Yeah. So how do you since you mentioned it, how do you go with the 80 weight Orifil? I absolutely love it, but I think it's like slept on where a lot of people don't use it because either they don't know about it or they're afraid to use it. But I think it's an incredible thread. But I'd like to get your input on that.
Well, I've only just started using it, so I've been
Okay.
using the 12 weight in the sewing machine,
Hmm.
which a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know that you could use the 12 weight in the sewing machine.
Right.
And I've been teaching people in my Facebook group about the different size needles. You know, you must change your needle. And then I was digging through, and I think it was a freebie that I got from Aurifil. I've got one cream 80 weight thread. And then when I started stitching with, and I remembered that Karen had said it gives a really lovely texture if you're doing like
Hmm.
pebbles and things. Um, and I started playing with it, thinking, oh, it might be a little bit too light for me. It's absolutely beautiful to use.
Yeah.
I need more of the 80 weight in my life. I've got to get some more.
Yes. Yes. We
Yeah,
always need more of the 80 weight. We always need more Orifil in our
yeah,
life because it's really good. Yeah, I had Karen on the podcast as well, and
yeah.
that the thread is really really nice. So one last question that I've got for you. is for listeners that love to design or want to get into designing their own patterns, what advice would you give them? Because I know a lot of them are afraid to make the jump to start
Yeah.
designing, and I know that's kind of where you approached it a little bit differently when you did the bee because you were doing it for a friend. But kind of what's that advice that you could give them when they're wanting to get out and kind of do a version of what you've done?
I think they should document everything that they're doing.
Mm,
I've got scribbled notes on all sorts of things that didn't go right, things that I go that no, we're not going down that route.
right.
Or, and just keep notes of everything that you're trying. There's a lot of people out there now, other designers that have um, workshops and courses for you to
Mhm,
join.
mhm,
Um, when I first started designing, it's not just about designing the quilt. It's about you need a product number, you need a barcode,
mhm,
you need a barcode that works in the UK and the US, and
mhm,
not just within Europe. Um, you need your graphics, you need your fonts, you need your branding. So it's not just about going, I've got a brilliant design. It's all these other things in the background that you need to think about. But there are courses out there. I can't think who they are. I've not been on any. I just did a lot of research
right.
when we were in lockdown, and yeah, so I had the extra time to do that.
Cool. I think that's really great information along with, making the jump to start doing your own designing because what's it gonna hurt? You're putting your ideas on paper, you're testing them out, they come out beautifully, and then you're releasing that. People really are getting interested into it. Well, then there's a whole nother business side behind that you've
Yeah,
got to think about and bring in or find someone to help you with it. Some people they're really, really, really good at being the designer and that's what they want to be, and then they need a
yeah,
sidekick basically to do all the business stuff. And it's not, not being afraid to make that leap because your designs are worth being seen.
absolutely. And it's not being afraid to ask people. I've got a graphic designer that my niece, she did probably the first 10, 12 with
Hmm.
me, and then she was like, Auntie Tracy, I've got a life. She got a new house. She's young. And she was like, I need to stop doing this now because she'd been promoted at work. So
Right.
I found another graphic designer that works with me as a consultant, and it works well because we've been working together nearly 2 years now. And it just takes that pressure off because initially I thought, I now need to learn how to use Adobe Illustrator or
Hmm.
InDesign or
Hmm.
get really good on Canva. And actually, I don't, because the more time I'm going to spend doing that is the less time I'm going to spend designing and making. And I
Right.
do all the business side as well, the website. But for somebody new that's coming in, you don't have to have all these different platforms. You can use Etsy. Use Etsy. Start off on Etsy. It's a great place to just get your stuff out there to see, if the world's going to like it, and then you promote everything else on your social media.
Just let it go from there.
Yeah,
Fabulous. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for taking some time to spend with me today and talk about your patterns, talk about your design process, talk about kind of your journey through quilting. It has been such a lovely conversation, and I can't wait for more of these conversations to happen when we see each other in person again, because we like to run into each other from time to time.
we do. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed talking to you again, Corey.
You are welcome. One last thing, actually, I told you I wouldn't ask you another question, but here I am asking you another question. For those that want to find more about you, we mentioned it about midway through, but let's end it off nicely. What is website, socials, all those different things where people can find more about Tracy and Rope and Anchor?
So my website is www.ropeandanchortradingco.com. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. So that's my website, and there's always things going off on there, and I send a newsletter out every week. My Facebook group is called Made on the Cut, and my Facebook page is Rope and Anchor Trading Co. There's little dashes in between each word. and the same for my Instagram as well. So I'm always on there. I'm building my community, and it's a really lovely place to be. Um, the other thing that, sorry, we didn't touch on is the lookbook. So people
Yes.
send me pictures of what they've been making with my designs, and I've got a page dedicated on my website to other people's. So the lookbook, so you can go and have a look on there and see that the spring quilt is in yellow and navy and looks absolutely gorgeous. That's a nice little place for inspiration as well.
Fabulous. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and I will chat with you later.
Thank you, Corey.
Alrighty, guys, that was our incredible episode with Tracy from Rope and Anchor Trading Co. I will have all of the links to the things that we talked about in the description below in the show notes. That way, you can easily jump over and follow her on her socials, hop on her website, take a look through that incredible lookbook, and see different maybe design or color inspirations that are coming from her patterns. And that way, you can attack them on your own. You can find her patterns available on our website, lindas.com, also available in our store, Linda's Electric Quilters, here in McKinney, Texas. Thank you all so much for joining me at the roundtable today, and I will see you next time. Bye.